You're infringing my trademark. Tim and I have both been to the Cineplex this weekend, and we saw Thunderbolts. Asterisk.
Yeah.
The latest MCU adventure featuring such earth-shattering characters with such huge followings as Red Guardian, Bucky, Ghost, Taskmaster, U.S. Agent, and did I miss any? Oh yeah, Black Widow. Yelena. That we'll just call her Yelena. As the film, what was your overall take, Tim?
My initial feeling is that this is one of the few Marvel films in the last few years where I can actually use the word good. This was a good movie. And if we're talking about movies that actually matter, not Guardians 3, which was a swan song, not Deadpool and Wolverine, which was a parody of a Marvel film. I enjoyed those movies, but we're talking probably since 2022, 2021 since I've actually said a Marvel film that mattered was good. Now, look, I'm not saying it's fantastic. I'm not saying it's earth shattering. I'm also not saying it's just okay. I'm also not saying it's bad. It's good, okay? It's a good film, and that's something that, quite frankly, was pleasantly surprising. What did you think, Dan?
I'm going to say like Tim, and I'm not going to damn it with the faint praise of other Marvel films. I'm not going to say it's nowhere near as bad as I thought. Oh, it's okay. Oh, it's not that bad. I am also going to say it was good. And by good, I mean, if somebody asked me, was that worth the price of a ticket? Did you have a good time watching it? Was it fun? I'm going to say yes. And not just was it fun because, me and Tim have had this argument with various contributors that we deal with and other people that we contribute with. Tim and my bar for good is, did we enjoy it? Other people consider good, in cinema.
Acting! Brilliant! Thank you! Thank you!
But it
Does
actually
it make money? One of our good friends, did it make money? Well, that doesn't make it good. So, yeah.
Right. No. This one actually, I think it clears an even higher good bar. Our bar is, did we enjoy it? It cleared that bar. And I think by a lot of objective metrics, it's also the acting is good, the cinematography is good. There aren't any really wonky, terrible shots. It is well crafted as well. And the narrative structure, like, okay, I enjoyed Minecraft, and by the did you enjoy it metric, it is good. By the was this story well framed metric, it's not good. The story is just nonsense so that people can yell chicken jockey.
Chicken jockey!
Which is fine. I enjoyed the hell out of it. But if somebody's like, I want a good story, should I go see that? It's like, well, if that's what you're looking for, then don't go. But this one actually does have a good story. So it did clear that bar of good. Now we're going to complain a lot for the rest of this video, but I want everybody to know up front, we're both standing on good. Now, Tim, tell me why it's not good and it actually was very, very bad. Warning, but this is a full spoilers review because me and Tim don't know how to do a different kind of review. We just tell you what we think about everything that happened. Just warn you now.
Spoilers. I think that there are a few things that are keeping it from being great, and I think I'm going to be in the minority here. Dan and I are probably going to disagree on this. I don't know, because Dan and I, believe it or not, Dan and I have not talked about this, guys. We haven't talked about this a lot, other than generalities. I am not a fan of Julia Louis-Dreyfus in this movie, and I there's a specific reason why. I do believe that she is very reminiscent to me of what Susan Sarandon was in Blue Beetle. I know that you didn't suffer through that movie, Dan, but I did.
No.
And I will tell you that when you get these actors who clearly don't have any care for the source material, it does feel kind of like they mailed in the character. There were inconsistencies as well. I'm struggling to figure out why a lot of the government agencies are going to listen to her when they know that she's under investigation to help her destroy evidence. That's kind of weird. I also think the very ending where they go to arrest her and then the people start clapping and then they just stop. That doesn't make any sense either. Those are the kind of things that really, when you're taking a look at the movie as a whole, you're like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And her in general, not a great actress for this. Probably could have picked someone that would have come across a little more sinister, a little more menacing, somebody who actually would have given some kind of a dynamic acting performance. She really didn't do that at all either. I know they were trying to come at things from kind of a comedic angle. It didn't really land as comedic with her very much either. So there was a lot of that. So she was probably the biggest weakness of the film for me.
Tim has a proviso. If you've made Tim crack a smile in a project at some point, if he has laughed at something you have done, you are forever banned from being serious in a film. You're not allowed. It's not okay. I think the one exception may be Robin Williams because he was just that awesome. But I don't know. Maybe Tim throws things at the screen when he watches Dead Poets Society. I'm not absolutely sure. I will say, I think our friend Bonebridger kind of nailed it. He was saying she's playing Selena Meyer. She's playing her character from Veep through the whole show. I mean, it plays as straight Veep. And my question, he said that she's playing Veep. I said, well, if she's playing Selena, who's Gary? And if you're a Veep fan, you know Gary was the bag man. He was the sycophantic bag man. And she does have a Gary in this film. Mel is Gary. Mel is the bag man. She's the sycophant that runs around. And even though she shows some bright points of being able to stand up to her, she does crumble and turn into a real Gary. As far as her in the role, I feel like they didn't go comedic, and they maybe could have or should have, because she could have delivered that. The somber moments when she interacts with Bob and sees her history and has a sad moment, I feel like she was able to deliver that. She could deliver the sadness of that deep moment, but the menace I did not get. And maybe that's just because I watched Veep and I can't, when she's being really serious like that, it plays as comedic to me. Because if you watched Veep, she is being serious, but we know that she's totally incompetent, and so is her entire staff. That's kind of the premise of that whole show. So when she's doing that same shtick, it's not menacing at all, because I'm used to like her delivering a line like that and turning around to her staff and being totally incompetent. Well, she had one little scene where she showed some fighting skills. It was pretty cool. She did deliver that.
Contessa is supposed to be like a martial arts expert. She's supposed to be right on par with Fury and some of those others, because she kind of was a SHIELD operative for a while. I understand the angle that they were kind of taking with her. It was a faceless corporate, almost like head of Hydra type thing. I've not liked that since it's been introduced, and I've been vocal about that since it's been introduced to us. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was introduced. I thought it was silly then. As it got introduced and kind of carried through with, I think, at the end of the Black Widow movie, and then some other appearances that she's had since then, it just has not landed well for me. After talking to several people, I know I'm in the minority there. Not gonna lie, I know that.
No, I will agree to the extent that she never seems scary to me. Like she doesn't seem like the hyper competent. We talked about the same thing with Vanessa and Daredevil Born Again. These actresses that they're casting are not conveying the level of menace that you would hope. The one time they got an actress that should have totally been able to deliver that, she just mailed it in, and that was when they got Sigourney Weaver on the Defenders series on the Netflix shows.
She did just like Susan Sarandon. She did just like Julia Louis-Dreyfus. These people have no appreciation for what they're getting into when they do these things. You get the feeling they kind of think this is like a silly kids film kind of thing. That's the level of villain that they're playing, is like a silly kids film, like a Disney villain almost, not like a superhero villain.
Like they're in Spy Kids.
That's right. It's something like that. You know, that's the kind of thing that they're giving us.
They can't all be Kate Blanchett and Ragnarok just knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, she killed it. She killed it. She killed it.
Yeah.
And she had everything. She had the quippy comedy lines. She had the sinister, menacing feel. She was very powerful. You feared her by the end. That's a perfect example, Dan. I will get into something that I absolutely loved that other people might not love right now. And that is towards the very beginning of the film, they kill the character that they have endowed as Taskmaster. And I love it. I felt like that was 1000% for the fans because we all know that that is not who Taskmaster is supposed to be. It was almost like they just said, we're just going to not even make this a part of the movie because we know the fans don't care about that. So great job there. I loved it. Some people thought it was inconsistent and weird. Doesn't matter to me. Okay. Get rid of a terrible character any way you can. It was great.
You're absolutely right. The most meta thing, it was almost like a Deadpool moment where you could see them all look at the screen and say, see, we did this for you. When they killed Taskmaster, it's almost, they could have just stopped the movie dead and look and be like, are you happy?
Are you not entertained?
Yeah, I didn't believe they were going to keep it. I kept thinking she was going to show up. I kept thinking she's going to show up somewhere. She's going to show up somewhere. They didn't really kill her because this is Marvel and nobody dies but Uncle Ben. But when she stayed dead, I could not have been more happy with that. Could not have been more happy.
She just got unceremoniously capped and then incinerated. So, I mean, I think we can.
She is not coming back, man. So I loved that.
I enjoyed the movie front to back. Things that didn't land perfectly for me had more to do with what came before this and what's going to come after. So one example of something that early in it took me completely out of it for a minute was Walker, U.S. agent, when they're trapped in the basement, the furnace, before they try to get killed. He's talking about how he was Captain America. Their callback is like, oh yeah, for a minute until you killed an innocent man in the street.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unfortunately, to my dismay, I had to sit through the garbage piece of trash where they introduced this character called Falcon and the Winter Soldier, one of the worst things ever committed to film that I've actually ever sat through in my life. Total, absolute, putrid garbage this show is, right?
I mean, it's bad, but I don't hate it as much as Dan does. But keep going, Dan.
It has no redeeming qualities of any kind. Not one. He did not kill an innocent man in the street.
It was a flag smasher. Yeah.
Yeah. He did not murder an innocent man. He killed a terrorist, which is what an American soldier, which he's an American super soldier, but that's still a soldier. And when they're deployed against terrorists, they're supposed to kill them. And in this film, he just says, oh, define innocent, as if he wasn't really. But I mean, you don't want to bog this movie down in that debate. So you kind of just have to, if I had never seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, it wouldn't have bothered me because I could have just assumed what they said actually happened. And the other thing is, Walker in this movie was established as kind of a prick, way better than he ever was in that show. Like, they acted like he was being a prick in that show, but he's supposed to be a prick in the comics.
Yeah.
He's kind of an ass.
The whole thing about him really being a jerk to his wife about his son crying was like, that's John Walker. As soon as they did it, I was just like, boom, they nailed Walker. And they gave us every single reason to hate him on an internal level that they didn't give us in Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's very much like what you said. Walker always was a jerk, but did that really come across? We got to see his lovely wife and child, and he was presented as Captain America and all this other stuff. And he and Bucky and Sam had some back and forth, but did we really have a situation where we didn't think that he was a jerk? No, but not like that. I don't think we ever really saw that kind of thing. So seeing those memories really was kind of a good thing. And then finding out that, yes, he did eventually get divorced, or she left him, or whatever.
Right.
Walker was actually a really good character for this film. If there's a redeeming quality in Falcon and Winter Soldier, it's that character actually was a good character for this film. And Wyatt Russell always did what he could with the character. It's not his fault that they didn't set it up right in the show. So anyway.
Yeah. This character is written and performed much more true to the source material in this film than he was in that show. Like Walker being kind of a buffoon, kind of a prick, not a terrible
kind of a know-it-all.
person,
kind of a know-it-all, kind of, he's very much like
kind of a know-it-all that's actually kind of dumb, like a naive guy, convinced of his own greatness, confidence that's not earned. Like down there in the furnace thinking like, oh no, they're still coming to get me. I'm not being killed.
Exactly.
You guys are losers, but so like right off the bat, he's established as this guy who's kind of a little clueless and yet thinks he knows everything. You find a helpless civilian down there, which is what they all took Bob to be. And he was ready to kill him or leave him to die. He didn't care about him at all. And Bob called him out. You're Captain America, and laughed.
You're kind of a jerk.
Yeah. And that's who U.S. agent's supposed to be. And so they really did that well. In the show, he was palling around with his best buddy, another hero veteran. He never, he killed a terrorist. And we were all supposed to, from that moment forward, despise him for having killed a terrorist. That's the only thing they did in the show. And this, they really made him a prick, which he's supposed to be. So that worked for me here as opposed to there. And that was good. Let's get to the Bob of it all. Were you a fan of any Sentry material previous to this movie? Like, did you read any of the Sentry stories?
No, I mean, I'm everything I've ever read with Sentry has been a collaborative effort. It's never been anything where he's kind of the star of the show. A couple things. First and foremost, this was Bill Pullman's son, and he did a great job with the role. That's just something worth mentioning. We got Kurt Russell's son. We got Bill Pullman's son. One of the things that Kevin Feige has tried to work into projects over the years is the base level stuff that a lot of average Americans have confronted in their lives. That's something that I've always kind of admired Kevin Feige for. Everybody knows I'm not the biggest Kevin Feige fan, but I do admire how he tries to actually make each project somewhat relatable to a different audience. For instance, in Love and Thunder, which I was not a fan of, but I absolutely love the fact that they attacked the subject of terminal cancer. That was a great thing. And this is an example in Sentry. You're talking about people who were abused and became drug addicts. That's who Sentry is. And there is a big portion of America that needs to hear what Sentry heard at the end of the movie, which was, we got you, you're not alone, all that kind of stuff. So that was great. I appreciated that message because, like I said, Kevin Feige is very good at finding those little things. Not really a huge Sentry fan, but it worked out well in this particular movie. I really did enjoy Sentry. And it kind of gave this hodgepodge roster of a bunch of nobodies, it gave them added stakes to the movie because he was substantially more powerful than all of them together could ever be. It really was a great thing for them to see the stakes raised and to rise to the occasion. So that was something that I really appreciated as well.
Sentry worked great in this movie. I enjoyed him in this movie. As a character, I've never been a fan. I was reading quite a bit. I was still very much reading a lot of comics in 2000 when he was rolled out, and I never liked this character in the comics. I thought that his rollout was a marketing gimmick because if you will remember when Sentry was introduced, the idea of his origin was that he had always been there in the Marvel universe, and he had to remove himself due to his schizophrenia and the existence of the void. And I never read the story. I only read the articles about the story when it came out. And they had this whole release of retro issues where he was in it, and they rewrote the whole history. And somehow he had made everybody forget that he existed, even though he had always been there. Now, they didn't run with this in the movies. And I always just look at that as just a somewhat goofy idea to introduce a character and to do these retro things and to do some retconning. I'm not a huge fan of retconning. It can be good sometimes, but sometimes it just makes things way too complicated. The other thing about Sentry is within the framework of the Marvel universe of the comics, he's OP. He's overpowered. And for this film, he was perfect because you're really dealing with a film about depression,
mental health. Yep.
And mental health, different types of it. He seems like he may have he's got addiction issues, he's got depression, he might have manic as well as his schizophrenia and multiple personality issues. Yelena is definitely suffering from depression. Red Guardian it seems like the whole rest of the team is suffering to some extent with depression or PTSD. And so he fits great into that narrative. They found a great way for him to work. And if they stick with what they've got, the existence of him in the universe going forward is what he worked perfectly in this movie. I went in not prepared to like Sentry because I did not like him as a comic book character. And I thought that was going to be something that detracted from the film for me, and it did not. I enjoyed his story. I enjoyed the arc of acceptance, especially like at the end when they're in like his mindscape and he's trying to beat the void, and you realize that's not what you need to do. That was wrong. Yelena's like, this is wrong. And really what he needed was acceptance. The void is still him. You have to accept it. You have to accept your darkness, and he had to do that to heal.
To me, that was very reminiscent of the first Guardians movie when Groot covers them up and says, "We are Groot." Remember that? That was just very reminiscent of that same thing. And that was kind of what this whole movie reminded me of. It was kind of like very much like the first Guardians movie. You got these kind of like second-rate heroes. They don't really like each other. They're kind of forced to work together. They've got this other thing, and then they all decide to work together, and it takes all of them actually caring for each other and caring for him in order to defeat it. It was actually a very good thing, and I appreciated that callback to the first Guardians movie.
And that worked great for this film. But going forward, you can't have too many overpowered characters. It's just like the narratives stop working.
It's kind of funny because, we always heard about how dangerous it was to let the Hulk out, but it seems like we always let him out when we needed him anyway. The setup at the end of this film is going to be that that's not going to be what we're going to do with Sentry. He's too dangerous to let out. So I feel like that's kind of where they kind of left it, is Bob is going to exist, but Sentry is going to come up when we really, really, really need him. And that could be years down the line. That could be when Phoenix is a thing. That could be, when we get to a hyper-powered character, that's probably where we're going to end up. That's where Sentry is going to come out again. But right now, he's just Bob, and he's just going to be, the guy that gets the coffee for a while.
I would like to see them keep Sentry in that box. We haven't really touched on the main character. This is Black Widow 2. And for all the terrible Taskmaster of it, and the fact that the movie was way too little too late was the biggest problem with Black Widow. There were no stakes. The character was already dead. We knew she was going to stay dead, and it wasn't going to change anything going forward. It was like, oh, here's some things that happened before. It was a fun movie outside of the Taskmaster of it. How did you take Yelena through any of Black Widow or Thunderbolts or Hawkeye? Has she been referred to as, she's been called a Black Widow, but she's not been called.
She has been called a Black Widow assassin. The implication has been that she has taken the mantle of Black Widow, but I don't think anybody is taking that seriously. So yes.
I don't think she refers to herself that way. So
overall, this was Yelena's movie. They're not going to tell you that. They didn't really tell you that in the promotion. This is Yelena's movie. That's what this is. She's not strong enough to pull on her own. They kind of shoehorned her movie into a roster project. And I feel like that's the only way it was ever really going to work. I love Florence Pugh as an actress. I think that she does a great job with this. I think that she's a beautiful actress, and she lands the part very well. She does command the screen every time she's on it, which is nothing to sneeze at. That's hard to do in a Marvel movie where you've got a lot of stars and a lot of big names. But if there's one thing I would say that the character is kind of the problem, not the actress. I think that she's kind of pulling this character along because I think anybody else with this character, probably it doesn't work. But she is pulling this character along, and I think that she's done a great job. She did a great job in the Black Widow movie as well. She did a great job in Hawkeye. The character itself just does not demand its own project, but this was Yelena's movie. For what it was, I think that she did a very good job with it. I'm not very interested in her getting much more of a role moving forward, though. Once again, that's not Florence Pugh. That's just the character. I'm not really interested in Yelena being the leader of the Avengers moving forward. I'm not really interested in seeing how Yelena helps save the world in Doomsday. I'm really not interested in seeing how Yelena helps save the world in another collaborative project. I think she did a great job here with this particular character. Less is more.
I like Yelena. I believe she's done very well with the character. I enjoy the humor and the deadpan of it. This specific movie was very good, dealing with grief and loss, depression. There were a lot of relatable things and themes in this movie. So she needs a feeling of purpose. And I feel like young people from, your mid 20s on, you have these various points in your life where you want to find purpose. You want to feel like you're accomplishing something. You're working towards a goal, that you're part of something bigger than yourself. You could feel at a loss like you're not. And I think through that character, they attack these things very well in this movie, because she's doing wet work, random stuff, things she's been trained for since a child. And one thing is, her tragic backstory is really not any different than Natasha's tragic backstory. So as a character, the only added spice that Yelena has from Natasha is the loss of Natasha. That's the additional tragedy that she has over Natasha. Other than that, their background is exactly the same. And she was slower to becoming a little bit more altruistic than Natasha was. So that does kind of make her a little bit less than. But I'm interested in seeing more of her, because I do like that this aimlessness, Natasha would never have that. But a lot of people can relate to that, feeling like you want to be a part of something and you're not. You don't know exactly what you want that bigger something to be. You're looking for something you believe in enough to be a part of it. You want to be a part of something, but you're looking at various things. You're like, well, okay, I want to be part of something, but not necessarily that. So I enjoyed that.
Let's talk about the name for just a second, Dan. The name Thunderbolts comes from her Pee-wee soccer team that did not win a game. I think that's just great. Like, to me, that was like perfect. As soon as they introduced that in the movie, I was just like, oh, that's perfect. That's where they get the name Thunderbolts from. It's perfect. So I loved that. I thought that was hilarious. It fit the tone of the film. It fit everything else. It fit the story. You got the whole story in the backdrop. You got it like 2 or 3 times. It was great.
We got to touch on the Red Guardian. So David Harbour just walks to this movie, stealing scenes and being awesome.
The Red Guardian he Red Guardian to the whole thing. I mean, he did such a great job. I first of all, I love David Harbour. I think that David Harbour he's one of those unsung actors that nobody even realizes the stuff that he does, because he does it so well sometimes. He just absolutely has grabbed this character by the neck and just gone for it every single time. I mean, in Black Widow, he was probably the lone bright spot in Black Widow. And in this movie, I didn't need everybody to be a comic relief. I think there were moments where they tried with the little quippy, quick comedy, and it didn't really land. But everything with him landed great. Anytime he had a line, anytime that he had an idea, anytime that he tried something that wouldn't work, it was just 1000% right on point for the character. He just has made this character such a buffoon. I love, because it's not like that. The Red Guardian is not like this big buffoon, guys. I mean, he's not in the comic books. He's not like this at all. And so just to see that David Harbour has taken this, he's made it his own. I absolutely loved that. He did a great job, just like I expected him to. If you've seen the trailer, you're not going to be surprised at all by how he delivers the character. But I just love how he's made this character his own, and he's just kind of taken it. There are some people that are going to think this is who the Red Guardian is, and that's just awesome to me. Yelena always has this kind of relationship with him where she's just like, whatever, I don't like you. I don't like you very much, but I need you more than I should. It very much feels like that through the whole movie. It feels like there's that kind of tension back and forth between them, but he is very funny in the movie, and he's one of the reasons I think that the movie ended up landing very well.
Yeah, and he delivers the few serious moments are delivered very well. It's an early point in the film where, like I said, Yelena is looking for purpose in her life. And she goes to him and like, when were you happiest? And when he delivers his speech about he was the happiest when he was serving his country and had people cheering him on, and he was a hero and he was doing good and he was saving civilians, he delivers that. Even though it's this buffoon of a character, you realize that this man was not always who he is now. He was a hero, and he delivers that well. Towards the end, when Yelena is having a breakdown, and she tells him, like, where were you? You weren't there for me. And they have a whole moment. He's like, I'm not good at this. I realize I should have been there. Maybe I didn't think you wanted me to. Like, he's able to go from being this buffoon to actually deliver a serious scene in a serious way with real emotional weight, which people not always can do that. And so he was able to do that well. Him and Bucky is gold. Sam and Bucky is hot, stinky garbage. It's awful. Throw it in a dumpster. It doesn't work at all. But Bucky and Red Guardian is just top shelf. The hero worship. It's like the old cartoons. Yeah, Spike, what do we want to do? Spike, come on, Spike, let's go find a cat. That's Red Guardian. And Bucky is the big, shut up.
You just think to yourself that, these characters are all very unlikely heroes. They definitely should not have ended up together. They're definitely not a team that you would ever see working together. That's what Val said at the very beginning. She said they'll never work together. And so I thought that was great. I am going to rewatch this one at some point, probably not in theaters, but I'm definitely going to rewatch this one, and I look forward to seeing all the little hidden funny Red Guardian moments for sure.
I did love that throughout the whole film, they were always acknowledging that they are totally outclassed and not prepared to deal with anything.
That's right. That's right.
Like they all know.
If there's one character that I think always kind of felt like he was a step above all of these guys, and his entrance was great, it was Bucky. Bucky had a great entrance into this movie for the action. He was kind of doing the congressman stuff for a minute, and he obviously is a congressman that's in way over his head. But as far as this kind of covert ops stuff that these guys are not very good at, he is very good at it. It was one of those things that at that moment, you just knew, okay, now the team is coming together. Because when you had three people that were no good together and then you add Bucky to it, it's just like, this is the way it's supposed to be.
This film, you couldn't take it in a vacuum because we have familiarity with all of these characters based on all of these other projects. But qualms I have with the film all come from outside of the film. So, perfect example. You talked about the awesome introduction of Bucky in the action. So he's in the film. He's a congressman. He's trying to read packets. He does not care about packets. But when he finally arrives as Winter Soldier, and you've seen a lot of this sequence in the trailers.
It was sweet, man. It was sweet.
Like, I mean, it's totally epic. When he takes that truck and gets the winch and grabs a cable and slams his cybernetic arm into the ground and flips that truck all by itself, because you're just thinking it all through. Like, okay, a super soldier guy, he still only weighs a couple 100 pounds. It doesn't matter. He's peak human strength, but he's not a Hulk. He's not going to, but he takes his cybernetic arm with his super soldier strength and cybernetic arm strength, jabs that into the ground. So now it's staked. He's going to flip that truck. Just the whole thing with the motorcycle. It's all awesome. But you know what I thought at the end of that awesome action sequence, Tim?
What's that?
aren't we all just so glad that that's not Captain America?
Yeah, exactly.
We need a guy with no powers of any kind whatsoever. None. Not any, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
Have them available.
Opportunity missed. Opportunity missed right there.
Yeah. This guy had powers on the table, and he's like, nah. And then Bucky was like, no, powers are great. You should have some powers. And he's like, nah, it's not me. And then they argued about it for like 8 episodes. Nobody asked him why he didn't want powers. And I think he argued about it some more in a movie. And nobody asked him why then either. We just know that he doesn't want them. He doesn't want them because actually he can beat a Hulk to a standstill without powers. All he needs is a wingsuit. And you too could defeat a Hulk with a wingsuit and some well-formed words
and a shield. The shield. He had a shield too, Dan. Okay,
you do need a shield, but I do believe that if Sentry could take a shield and bend it into a taco, I think maybe the Hulk could bend a shield into a taco too, even a red one. You might, maybe you need to upgrade to a green one. And an angry green one at that to bend a shield into a taco. But I think maybe a red one could have bent a shield into a taco as well. Bucky was awesome in the whole movie. And if anything, we can get into the after credits of it. This was after credits when they were talking about Captain Sam. And it really, again, I've had this complaint about a number of Marvel projects since Endgame that the only time any of them work, I've said this about Agatha, about No Way Home even. They only work when they're separated from the rest of what has been happening in the Marvel Universe. And when that encroaches back in, it starts to feel not fun. It starts to fall apart. And so at the end, in the after credits, when they're talking about Sam is suing them for the name The Avengers, and he has his own Avengers team, you're like, really? Is this what our Captain America does now?
Here's the thing. For the character they've set up, Dan, it's so on point. It's so on point. That is what he would do. That's absolutely what Sam Wilson would do is, I'll show you who the real Avengers are. I'll see you in court. That's exactly on point.
Yeah, so Sam Wilson is Axl Rose, right? He's going to take his bandmates to court. It's like, if it's me and 5 other guys, I get to call it Guns N' Roses. So Sam gets to call it the Avengers as long as he's there because he has the shield, even though Tony was the primary one behind creating the Avengers and the name the Avengers. And really, if you want to get serious about it, it was Nick Fury. But, Sam has Steve's shield, so he gets to decide who the Avengers are the same way that Axl gets to decide who Guns N' Roses is. So that's our hero.
That's right.
A litigious prick. You're infringing my trademark.
It's like I could just go out and fight bad guys and feel good about the fact that I fight bad guys, but that's not good enough. I've got to fight bad guys as the Avengers.
Yeah. I can't just grab some random name or not even have a name, just be some dudes, and then the press could make up a name. No, I got to sue you for the rights. What are they suing over? Like marketing rights, merch? Is it merchandising?
I'm very interested to see kind of where they're going to go with that because, quite frankly, neither one of them are the Avengers team that I would want. So yeah, it'll be kind of an interesting fight.
The problem with these Thunderbolts is, again, without Bob in the picture, they're not really equipped to fight these earth-shattering threats that you would see the Avengers attacking. None of them. It would be like if the original Avengers was just all Hawkeye and Black Widows.
Yeah.
If all you got is Hawkeyes and Black Widows, you got no Thor, you got no Iron Man, you got no Hulk. You're not stopping the Chitauri. I'm sorry, that they're winning. So you're in this post-credit scene, and you know that these new Avengers can't be the Avengers because they're not going to stop a secret war, much less a doomsday. You know what I'm saying? They're not stopping Dr. Doom. That's not going to happen. Dr. Doom is just going to walk right past this team of guys.
I don't think that this is going to be a foundational block for the universe. I know that they endowed them as the new Avengers at the very end of the film. I don't think that matters. I really think they're going to be a supplementary roster throughout the rest of the universe now. I don't think they're strong enough to build on. It was a good movie. I could say that I enjoyed the movie. I can say that I think all of the characters did a very good job with the story that was right in front of them, with the exception of Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I did not care for that, but everyone did a really good job. The story was great. It was very well thought through. There really wasn't a lot of political push. There was some, but not a whole lot. I do feel like overall the MCU, this isn't anything that's going to be like saving the MCU. It could be kind of a bright spot in a world of garbage. That's kind of the way that I'm looking at it right now, is it's kind of a surprising bright spot. But my overall opinion of the direction of the MCU has not changed.
I'm going to say for this the same thing I've said for quite a few Marvel projects. I've liked more of what's came out than you have since Endgame, but everything I've liked, I've said the same thing. This by itself in a vacuum was great and I enjoyed it. It doesn't do anything to fix what's wrong with the continuity of the universe as a whole. You know what? I would gladly watch another film. I could skip 3 or 4 big line Marvel projects, like the Fantastic Four, maybe even some of these Avengers films, and see these and watch these guys on the perimeter of it, cleaning up messes and dealing with small scale threats, and enjoy that more than any of the large scale events that seem to just not land anymore. That's kind of where I'm at. Every now and again, a side thing works. Overall, the universe just doesn't. This was, while fun and good, and I would say go see it. If you have any interest and you think that maybe you'll like it, you probably will. If you think that you won't, you might. And if you don't like action movies and you hate superheroes, then I don't know, why are you watching us talk about it? But if there's even a glimmer that this is something you might like, you probably will. It doesn't disappoint, but it doesn't fix. And no, they're not back.
Hey, just real quick, Dan, the post credit.
Yeah.
For the first time in forever, we have a post credit that leads directly into the next project. What did you think about that? I know that you're not overwhelmingly excited about Fantastic Four. I'm not either. But just the fact that they had a post credit that leads into the very next project is something that I'm like, they finally are starting to get it. They're finally understanding what made the original films successful. They generated excitement through the post credit. No, we don't want to wait 5 years. No, we don't. We want to go ahead and do the very next thing.
I much more preferred the mid credit scene. Red Guardian with his Wheaties box. That was the end credit scene that I needed. We haven't touched on him, and we will, but the Red Guardian is really just a fountain of joy in the middle of this whole film.
Oh yeah,
but
such a buffoon, but he's so funny. Yeah.
The great thing that I can say about this post credit is, having watched that post credit, I feel like I may decide in July that I've spent enough money by the time that I've seen this and Mission Impossible and Stitch and Superman, and I'll just skip Fantastic Four, because this post credit does not lead directly into the beginning of the Fantastic Four movie. This skips all the way to the end. Mm-hmm. So I can just skip it because I know how
how it ends.
Yeah, if you know how this movie ends, you know how the next movie ends. Ends with them, an interdimensional ship coming to this MCU Earth. So I already know how that movie ends. I don't know why I would have to go see it. I saw the trailer. It didn't look all that great. And yeah, this post credits just feeds right to the end of it. I know how it ends, so I may indeed skip it. What was your theater like? How many people were in it?
Well, I actually, the theater that mine was in was immediately following a chicken jockey screening of Minecraft. So they had to clean the theater right up until the point where it was almost showtime. There were 5 people in line when I got there. 5. By the time the theater opened, there were 7. 7. Okay. By the time the preview started, there were 10. I would say there were less than 20 throughout the entire movie. So it was very, very disappointing, to say the least. It's very reminiscent of a lot of the movies that I've seen recently, though. That's the thing. Like, it's very, very similar to the crowd that I saw for Brave New World a couple years ago when I went to see Blue Beetle. It was kind of that way. This is very much about what I expect, because I kind of think that Disney has saturated the theater viewings. They've almost got way too many. They book as if they're booking for Endgame, and they can't fill for Endgame. That's the problem. It's about what I expected, sadly enough.
I knew it wasn't going to be crowded. Me and Tim were supposed to go see this at the same time on Saturday. We are in Dayton, Ohio. My son's an hour away at college in Cincinnati, and he had forgotten that he had this plan and that plan. Long story short, I had to change the show time that my family and I were going to this movie, I think 4 or 5 times in the space of 2 or 3 days. What I will tell you is that I like to see these movies in IMAX. I have a huge TV at home, and I really feel like if I don't spring for IMAX, I should just stay home and watch things. When you get used to watching movies in IMAX, when you go to the theater and walk into a regular screen, you're like, wait, is that just a television? What's going on? I'm buying tickets at the same theater. And even though I switched show times, I think 4 to 5 times, 7 p.m., 3 p.m., noon, 4 p.m., Saturday, Sunday, at no point did I have trouble finding seats in the one IMAX theater. We have one theater with an IMAX screen and one IMAX screen in that theater in my area. Those showings were almost all vacant. We ended up going to a matinee. It was a 12:30 IMAX 3D showing, and there was probably 20 people there to see it.
And this is like the busiest theater in Dayton, Ohio, folks, where Dan goes. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I go to a theater a little north of Dayton. It's a suburb. It wouldn't shock you that there's not a lot of people there. It's not an IMAX theater. It's got like 5 or 6 houses, and that's it. Dan goes to the biggest theater with the IMAX screen in Dayton, Ohio, and his was about the same crowd as mine. That just kind of tells you everything you need to know.
I will say this for it. My son, we dropped him off at the door so he could get his mom some pretzel bites and his sister some nachos. And he was in line at the concession. He texted me a picture. Who is this? And it was popcorn buckets, right? The Red Guardian popcorn buckets were gone. Cinemark does have some, but the shelves, you go through a turnstile now to get up to the concession, and they have shelves of merch just overflowing with Sam Wilson Captain America popcorn buckets. The Captain America helmet head. My son didn't even have any idea. I'll put the picture he texted me into this, but he had no idea who that was because we did not partake in the Brave New World. He was like, who is this? I'm like, that's Captain America, Dan. And he's like, that doesn't look like Captain America. Like, no, it does not.
Well, you should mention that, right?
Yeah, they did at least sell some popcorn buckets, if not some movie tickets. We're here on Sunday, and we're going to get $76 million open domestic.
What was the budget for this film, Dan? Was that released yet?
Here's the thing. I searched for it, and the people in the comments are going to get so upset. It says the reported budget is $180 million, Tim. Where have you heard that before?
The difference for me is that the verbiage when I read this from the LA Times is not production budget. The verbiage actually is $180 million budget. And the other difference is that I actually see it here, right? I don't see a lot of CGI. I don't see a lot of necessary, soundstage usage and all that kind of stuff that like they used in Brave New World. And not to mention it hasn't had all the rewrites. It hasn't had all the things that we had in Brave New World. So $180 million I actually would buy for this film. Now, whether or not that's accurate, can't speak to that. Disney has completely and totally lied to us before, so I can't speak to that. But let's just take their word for it and say $180 million, which, once again, this is more believable at $180 million than Brave New World, for example. But let's just take their word for it and say $180 million. What would you consider a successful box office for this one at $180 million? For this film?
If it's going to have the MCU label, if it's going to introduce characters that are supposed to matter within the MCU framework, right? If these characters are going to show up, which we know they are because we we didn't, but people we know spent 12 hours watching Cheers in a $1 billion Avengers film, and you're supposed to already know who they are. I don't care if you only spent $18. If you can't get over $500 million, if you can't get to $500 million, then don't make the movie. Don't make it. Don't be like, oh, that's a good project and some people will like it. And if we can make it at 150 million or 180 million, we might get a return, blah, blah. Bleh. This is a 20 film plus franchise that's been going on for 18 years now. And it has a track record and a reputation to uphold. You know what I'm saying? So you can't just put out anything. And if The Accountant 2 does like this, they would kill to do this. This is huge numbers for something like that. But this is the latest Marvel movie that is supposed to open the summer box office.
I would be concerned if this was the opening for Fantastic Four. And what I'm really concerned with for Disney is that this is where Fantastic Four is heading, is a box office just like this. For this project, I'm going to scale it back a little bit. I'm going to say if it can break 4 without a fraction of the advertising that they had for Brave New World, if it can break 400 million, I think that's good for this film. Now, is that good in the grand scheme of what you're talking about, Dan? Absolutely not. I agree completely that means they probably picked the wrong project. Right. It probably means you picked the wrong project if you're Marvel and you picked a project that can't break $500 million. I agree with you completely there. But for this movie, if this one can break 4, I think that's actually pretty good. It's going to have to get a second life to do that, though, because this was a bad weekend. There's just no way around it. This was a bad weekend. People are going to have to hear that it's good and decide to go see it. They might get some traction there. Will they get $325 million worth of traction? Probably not. If it breaks 4, I think Disney will be doing backflips over that for this movie. But I don't know that it'll get there.
Right now, the projection for the global box office, because I was looking for that, is 162.1 for the global opening. Brave New World opened at a little over 190 and is petering out as we speak and is going to wrap up with like 414, 415. They talk about multiples when you're talking about movies. Captain America only got like a 2 times multiple for its like 2.2, the 190 something opening that it had, the 414 that it's ending with. It was like a 2 point something, the opening weekend times 2.2 or 3. That's all it made in global box office. If Thunderbolts does that, you end up at like 356. It will have to have much better legs than Captain America.
The only thing it has going for it is that it's a better movie. And they really need to hope that people figure that out between this weekend and next weekend. Because if they don't, if people have kind of decided, I think I can live without seeing Thunderbolts, they probably made one of the biggest mistakes in making this movie, which is a shame because it's not a bad movie.
Thunderbolts, these are all very unknown characters. They were all introduced in projects that underperformed dramatically, and to get a wide audience.
I know that Brave New World got a Super Bowl spot. Brave New World had a 12-foot long thing in the middle of the alley at Walmart that was packed full of Brave New World merchandise that nobody wanted. They really tried hard with the co-branding. They really tried hard with the advertising. They really tried to make us go see Brave New World because they really needed to make up the budget for all the rewrites and all the reshoots and all that kind of stuff. And what they should have done is completely scrap that movie and pumped up this movie. If they had done that, they probably would be looking at a box office right now that's trending more towards 100, 110. And they would be looking at a total box office trending more towards about $500 million. That's what they should have done. And instead of doing that, they really gave us this subpar effort that they did in Brave New World that ended up being a really bad movie. I feel bad for this movie being wedged in between the two projects that are going to get all the marketing love, because this is probably going to be the best movie of the three.
Yeah.
It sucks. I felt really good with the team overall, how they complemented each other, how they kind of helped each other. They had people that were super strong like Bucky and Guardian, and then they also had a Yelena who kind of filled that martial arts fighting assassin void. And then you had Ghost, can do the transparent thing where she just kind of goes through walls and does all kind of stuff. So there was a lot there. And then US Agent, obviously a super soldier that kind of is a little in over his head from time to time. So they all complement each other very well. And I thought that it worked out really well for that. I do think that, like you, I'm not really interested in this being the new Avengers team. We kind of come away with the idea that it's a pretty good movie. You know, I would watch it again. I would gladly sit down and watch it again. Not just, Thunderbolts is on, TNT late at night, I guess I'll just turn it on. No, I would actually sit down and watch this movie when it comes out on digital again and feel good about it.
And we touched on every character, and Ghost was in it too.
Yeah. That tells you exactly how interesting her dialogue was. But anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Nerd champs,